We're back on the van, and today we're going to put down this Altro flooring. We're going to do this aluminium checker plate edging, and we're also going to build this step for the entrance of the van. You've not subscribed yet, have you? You've been watching for like a minute, you're not subscribed? Well, I mean, if you weren't going to keep watching, you'd have left by now. So drop me a subscribe if you'd like to see more from this van conversion series. I've got my house renovation, which is ongoing. Yeah, drop me a subscribe, like, leave a comment, and if you have done, thank you very much. And I hope you enjoy the video. It has been a long while, months, probably half a year since I did anything on this series because I've been very busy renovating my house. But we're back, and today I'm going to install this Altro walkway flooring for my van. Now, I got this recommendation from Alex Frood, who has the YouTube channel Mispronounced Adventures. Now, awesome channel. He does all sorts of stuff, but he's probably best known for his Arctic series. Now, I'd love to go to the Arctic, but I can't really do it in this van, to be honest. It's far too old, far too unreliable. So maybe one day when I got a bit more money to get a better van, I'll do something similar. But for now, you're going to have to stick to the actual van conversion stuff. Now, way back in the series, we're going back 2 years at this point, I sorted out the floor. I added battens, insulation, and the plywood subfloor. And this is just going to be glued straight on top. But in order to get it down, I've had to remove the front of my pull-out bed system, which is here. Well, that's the back part of it, and that's the front part. But I had to remove both of those to reveal all of the floor and have a nice clean slate to start with. So before I can get started doing anything with the Altro itself, I got to address some things with the subfloor. The battens, I believe it was a while ago, they run along the length of the van, but I can't remember where, and there's only like 6 screws holding this down at the moment. So I'm going to take this up so I can work out where those battens are, mark them on this piece of ply and on here, so then I can transfer the lines and then get loads of screws in so this is down properly. Then there's a little gap over here. I can't remember why, but there is, and it needs filling in. So I've got to fix some bits of plywood down into there nice and securely. Once all of that is down, I'll give this a clean. Then I can start thinking about templating out the flooring itself. And then I've also got to consider the runners that the front part of the bed slide on. Well, basically I've got to decide, am I going to cut out a shape out of this flooring to fit around here, or am I going to unscrew these and then screw them back down through the flooring? Once all of the floor is prepped, I've got to make a decision on how I'm going to finish the edges of this floor. Now, I could just do it up to this edge and cut it, but it's nasty. Look at this insulation here. I'm pretty sure in an older video someone picked up on how I'd said I don't want to be let down by a really mediocre entrance, and I stand by that, and that is positively mediocre. So the question is, do I fold the carpet round? Do I have an edging that sits around here? I'm not sure yet, so I'm going to leave it long over here and decide on that later. So first things first, let's get this floor up and see what it's looking like underneath. It should all be dry. I'm not worried about that. I just can't remember how I've done it because it was that long ago. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Right, so I just made a couple pieces out of 12mm offcuts, like so. That one drop in there like that, and the other sits in there like that. And I think what I'm going to do is just grab my 18 gauge brad nailer and pop some pins in. If the roll is 2 meters wide, if it's 2 meters by 2 meters, it doesn't matter which way around it is. So when I cut this, I want to cut it ideally in one piece. It just makes everything easier. Long term. Short term, it complicates things for me, but I can deal with that. And the big question is, I said I want to do it all in one piece. But if I do it all in one piece, then I've got to have a little cutout back into here. And that's an added complication. But let's cut it as if I were doing that first. So it's width wise, it's going to be 1450. 1450. But I'm going to cut it to 1460 so that if anything changes here, then I've got the excess, because I'm not spending another 70 quid on Altro. This cardboard isn't big enough, but it might be if I cut it into strips and stick it back together. It's not big enough. So fold that over, because I'm going to get this square to here, all the way along. I've got to make a little cut along there so I can slide it back to there, and then we're going to see if we can make this work. I've got something a beginnings of a template that I'm quite happy with. I've shaped it along here. I've made sure that it's pulled square to this edge, which means that this is running all the way along here nicely. It's all completely flush to this edge. So I want this template to be as accurate as possible. And it's difficult when your cardboard is quite thick corrugated cardboard. So what I've done is I've got this piece here overlapped over this piece. I've drawn a line over both, and what I'm doing is I'm cutting a line freehand through both. I'm going to be really careful, and then the idea is that when I've cut all the way through, even if I slightly miscut, they should fit together perfectly. And then what I can do is tape them together really well, and then they should come out as one piece. This away here, and hopefully I have cut through this properly here, which I have just about. Then that forms a nice shape in the middle. So these should now stick together perfectly. Firstly, I'll put one strip all the way along, and then lots of strips horizontally. So on the end here, I've got this all shaped nicely. I'm happy with that. So now I'm just going to go and put a mark there. So then when I flip that over, I can connect those lines up, trim the rest of the cardboard with the Stanley knife, and then I'm just about there. I've just got this square to fill in here. I've done as much of this template as I can in situ. This is all taped up. I've now got to take this out really carefully and trim on the underside of here where I just drew those lines. I've got to do it quickly because it started raining and my front of my bed's still out. And then what's really important, like so crucial, is that when I use my template, I don't end up making a mirror image of my van, because that would be dreadful. I think it's sensible to try and minimise the amount of cutting I've got to do, right? So I'm going to, oh shit, I'm not done yet, am I? I have got to flip this back over because I've got to cut along those lines, haven't I? I'll do that quickly and then we're good to go. There we go. Right, that's our shape now. Okay, so what I've done here is I've placed it straight down onto the Altro, and I've put bits of tape underneath each of the corners. And I was going to go with the Stanley, and then I realised I have very few Stanley blades, and I know from watching other videos that you destroy a blade on like one long cut. And I thought, I've got a track saw, I've got an old blade that I don't mind if it gets blunted. And I did a little test, just a tiny little test cut here on the corner where I'm not going to be using it. And it cut beautifully. So I'm going to go with the track saw. Why not use the tools that I've got at my disposal? It's going to blunt the hell out of the blade, but it's not a very good blade anyway. So I've got this down here and I've lined it up really nicely. And what I've got to do now, so this bit here I will be cutting with the Stanley blade because it's a curved cut. Right. But all of these I should be able to do with the track saw. A couple of, maybe some of the inside corners I'll need to finish off with a Stanley, I'm not sure yet. Here, I'm not quite sure what's happened here. This has come out wider than here, and I think this narrower bit is probably correct, but I don't want to take that risk. So I'm just going to grab a bit of wood. I'm going to run that just for the moment up against there, and I'm going to take that as my edge. I can always trim it again. It's really easy to do on the track saw now. So I can lift off the template now. I'm going to smooth all of these bits down so they can't move, because that would be disastrous. Right, where's my track saw? I've set the depth of the track saw, but I can't find it. Here it is. So we're just cutting slightly through into our sacrificial board. Get it right on the line. So you can see here the cut's really good. Unless you cut much deeper into the wood below, it won't cut fully through. So I'm going to have to tidy up the edges with the Stanley, but that shouldn't be an issue. Let's give this a go. It's obviously not going to sit down perfectly because I've still got the runners on the floor. I'm going to be really upset if this doesn't fit. Good. It's pissing it down, for fuck's sake. Next day now, much easier in the light. I should have just waited for a lot of this. But anyway, I'm now going to try and transfer the position of these two screw holes. So I'll need to do some measurements, measure in from here, measure in from this end, take down the measurements, pop this back down and then transfer them over to the top. Okay, so I have successfully cut little holes in the Altro flooring that line up with the pre-existing holes for the sliders for the front portion of the bed. And I've done that both sides. So now I think I'm ready to start gluing this down, because I've sorted out off camera, I've sorted out the flooring around here. The shape is really good. And then I'll make sure that there's no dust on here. I should probably clean it. In fact, I'm going to give it a degrease and let it dry, because I mean, we've got a heat wave, so it's not going to take very long. Then this fit is really good. It needs a little trim on these edges, but that can be done once it's stuck down. Here it's perfect as well. Tiny bit short there, but I'm going to be putting some aluminium profile around these edges, so that's all going to be fine. Okay, let's get this degreased. This one's not too bad, but I'll spray it anyway. That'll do. Let that dry. Give it a wipe down with a fresh cloth, and then I think we're done. Right, so here's the plan. The most efficient way to do this, I believe, would be to spray the subfloor, take the flooring, the Altro flooring outside of the van, spray all of that, and then bring it in and place it down. But the risk of that is that as soon as it makes contact, you can't really move it around very easily. And it needs to be precise, because I've already lined up the holes. And I think what I'm going to do is get this in place. A second. These two holes line up. These two holes line up. I'm going to screw this one in place. Right, so the idea now is that this can't move. So the plan here, use this bit of cardboard. I'll spray all along here, and on the end of here, fold that down in place, let it set, and then I can roll the flooring up that way, and then this is protected. The other thing I need to make sure I do is go in the opposite direction to get the best bond possible. This should be ready to go. It's not going to take long to go tacky in this weather. Okay, we're ready. Oh, that's moved back. That's moved. It's moved. For shit's sake. There you go. Something there. Trouble with pulling it back up is you then create lumps, which you absolutely don't want to do. It's not a good start. Okay, let's continue. I think it should be all right there. Now, the idea here is that I can unscrew this. We should now be able to lift this up. Ah, this is much easier now. Okay. Whoops. So with the floor glued down now, I'm ready to reattach the front portion of the bed. I'm going to get them lined up and they should just slide on. Like so. So, I'm back on the floor. Sorry, this episode is just, there's little bits that I would have filmed that I haven't because everything's a bit manic at the moment. I'm trying to fix a Fabia. I'm trying to fix my van. This van is not currently running. And also just trying to do my house. But anyway, we're back on the floor. Okay, so I did a little bit off camera. I've picked up from B&Q after all that, this checker plate aluminium angle profile, and I'm just trying to get some of the angles cut. It's going to sit in here, but for that to work I need to lose this section here because there's no space for it. The floor goes right up against the edge. So realistically, as long as this goes beyond the front of here, you're never going to notice that it's not sat all the way back against the edge of the bed. What I need to mark basically is the distance from the end to around about here, and then add on, we'll just add on 18 mil. Basically, I need to lose this. So here's the piece I've just cut square, a little off cut, plenty long enough. So you can see here, if I slide this one in, is that this here is ever so slightly too long, so that needs trimming shorter. I'll do this cut first because that will allow this one to pull further in, and once I've done that I can see what the angle needs to change to on here. That gives me the angle that that wants to be at, though I'll take off less if I can. It's important, however, even though this edge is going to be tapered, This one still wants to be square. It's better, but again, another issue we've now got is that because of the different angle at the corner, this one sticks out further. So once I've got it exactly right, I am going to have to trim this one so that you don't have a bit sticking out. My mistake here, and I should have seen it coming because I kind of pointed it out earlier on, but as soon as you're on an external corner, they're much harder to hide. And I'm wondering whether what I should have done was to bend the aluminium in places and then make relief cuts so that it could fold in on itself, because what I've got here now is where I've made this cut. Firstly, that doesn't line up with that, so realistically my only option here is to just make this one narrower so it lines up here. And the other problem I've got is it won't meet down in the corner on the front edge. I'm actually pretty pleased with this, and I'm surprised at myself for how easily I've been able to go, you know what, I don't mind about this imperfection here or there. The feeling of getting it done, something I'm getting a lot better at in the last 6 months or so. It's getting things done is sometimes more rewarding than never getting them done perfectly. Done. There we go, look. And even here, so I did trim that one, but that, because it's only screwed down at the moment, I could change it, but I'm not going to, I don't think. This is neat. So with the floor's edging done, I moved on to fixing the step. And for this, the end goal was to use this piece of checker plate, but there was quite a lot of work to get to that point. Firstly, I used some of the offcuts of the Altro flooring to create a sort of skirt that would hide the vertical part of the step. However, in order to sort the horizontal part of the step, the bit that you tread on, it needed a bit more thinking. I made a template out of a 12mm piece of plywood, shaped it on one end, shaped it on the other end, found it was too short, transferred the template onto a longer one that was the right size for the step, and then used that as a template to try and cut the aluminium checker plate. Using the flush trim bit on the router seemed like a sound decision because it's aluminium, you can cut it with wood cutting tools. However, what I failed to envisage was the flush trim bit working itself loose as I made the cut. Once the bearing was gone, there was nothing to stop the blade from cutting straight into the template and the aluminium. So I ended up with a slightly smaller piece of aluminium than I planned, but I think I just about got away with it. The trouble is you can't tell until you finish the cut. My mistake here was impatience. I should have trimmed that aluminium down to a much closer size before I went in it with the router, because I've just put too much strain on a really thin router bit. I'm just going to have to live with that unless I want to make another one, which I don't. The other annoying thing is the laser cutters offered to just cut it to the right size for me, but I didn't have the wooden template ready and I didn't have a CAD drawing. So what I'm doing is I've got a Sharpie and I'll draw a line on the underside. So the aluminium piece is now cut out. Great, we can move on to my next big mistake, and that was trying to bend it without putting a relief cut on the underside of the alley. However, before I could even attempt to bend the aluminium, I needed to create a little infill piece that would close off the gap on the left vertical part of the step. So I just took a bit more 12mm plywood, cut it to shape on the bandsaw, and then screwed it in through the top of the step because that bit would be hidden by the aluminium. I don't think there's too much point in going through everything step by step here because I've pretty much shown you the little snippets earlier on just now. So let's just breeze through this. I made a very messy job of sticking the aluminium to the plywood. As I described earlier, did an even worse job at bending it. I was getting quite overwhelmed at this point because there's cat shit all over my back garden. Couldn't find where it was. Anyway, I eventually got the job done. Initially, I was not very happy with it, and then I kind of was. It looks decent. Let's take a look at it in situ. So I suppose the first question is, does it work as a step? I would say the answer is yes, resoundingly so. So it passes the test on strength. Now, one of the things I decided to do was to not actually fix it in place, as you saw in the intro. And the reason for this is that it would be extremely difficult to completely seal this area. You've got this step here where water can kind of trickle down there. If I were to fix this down in place permanently without being able to seal it, then what I'm doing is trapping moisture underneath. If I was worried that this got very wet, all I've got to do is lift it out, and then I can check and I can dry it if I need to. But most of it should just drain off. So that was that reason. But yeah, I'm happy with how it performs, and I'm also very happy with how it looks. There's some imperfections, but as I also said earlier, I'm learning to deal with those, and often it's much better to have a finished product that is imperfect than one that you never finished because you were so focused on making it right. So yeah, we've got a nice edging round here. This extends round to here. I'm not going to bother doing anything down there. You never look. Just need to get a screw in there that will hold that in place. All that's left to do on the van now is something here to cover that up. I've got some more of this wood. Is it cherry? There's a couple bits here, like some missing carpet there. There's a tiny missing bit there, but all my lights are in. I've got more lights here, which are awesome. But other than that, we're pretty much done. We've got the awning video next time on this series, and after that we're probably very close to doing a van tour video, which I've wanted to make for a long time. Once again, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you watching for this long. If you are a regular viewer of the renovation and you've stuck around for this one, then I'm especially grateful because I think there is a lot of overlap with the skills that I learned from one and apply to the other. And if you're a van conversion watcher and this is the first you're hearing about the house, have a look in the description. There's a full playlist below. All right, that's enough from me. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.